Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning into this Enabling Change and Innovation webinar. Today's webinar is exploring the 7 secrets for successfully marketing your next event. Once again, this topic was suggested by one of our webinar participants, and enough people then voted on it to raise it to the top of our list. Fortunately, I knew just the person to ask to help us with this topic. In fact, I met him over 10 years ago at an APEN conference over in Perth, where he's usually based. He's an experienced facilitator with over 20 years' experience. He works with organisations, teams and communities, delivering facilitation, stakeholder engagement, team development and professional development services. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our virtual stage today, Andrew Huffer. Now, as I mentioned, Andrew is usually based in Perth, but being the jet setter that you are, Andrew, I believe you're in Adelaide today. So the weather here in Toowoomba today is just gorgeous. It's a sunny blue sky and about 25 degrees. What's it like in Adelaide today?
G'day John, g'day everyone. It's pretty much the same experience right here in beautiful Adelaide. I'm at the Australian Wine Innovation Centre and life couldn't be much better, to be honest.
Oh, excellent. Well, thanks for joining us. We can hear you loud and clear, so over to you.
Thanks, John, and thanks everyone. And as we get started, I always like throwing in a random statistic, and today's first random statistic is that you're all in what I call the top 10%. Some of the reading I've been doing lately indicates that about 10% of our population actively seek information and develop themselves. So there's some data you can go and use any way you'd like from here on, in your favour, I'm hoping. Just as we get rocking and rolling, I just want to test an assumption that you're fairly clear on the purpose of an event, of your event that you've got coming up, and you're pretty clear on the outcomes it's going to deliver for the people who rock up to it. And you've also had some thinking about the profile of the people who you're trying to attract, because today's really more focusing on how we're going to get people there. So my assumption is that you're clear on who is in your market. So as John mentioned, we've got 7 steps to share today, and they're not exactly sequential steps. Some of them need to be done side by side, and some are probably more preliminary, setting up your process. So with that in mind, let's jump into it. The first key step is for you to think about the structure of your message that you're wanting to get out to your target audience. The one I'm using is one you've probably seen in marketing parlance called the AIDA structure. And it's really about thinking about how you're going to grab people's attention, how you're going to develop their interest, how you're going to tap into their desire, and what action you really want them to take at the end of the day. So I want to unpack this a little bit more. So firstly, from the work I've been doing, it's really being able for you to grab people's attention with something that's specific to them, to be really able to flag either a benefit you're going to provide them or some pain that they're experiencing. And this is just an example one here, but it really quite clearly selects small landholders who have got a problem with weeds on their properties, rather than going across the whole spectrum of small landholders in one area. So the solution I've got coming their way in this example is a biological control agent for blackberries. So if you have that in your mind and work with it, you've probably got your own solutions for people you're going to be working with, and we'll step through those as we go. So the first step is to grab people's attention with a headline. This could be either in a newsletter, it could be in a radio ad, it could be in a brochure, it could be in a direct letter, it could be as part of your website. It's really just using this structure as you go and think of ways to grab people's attention. The next part is to tap into their interest. And at this stage of the webinar, I know John said you probably parked at your computer with your feet comfortably planted underneath. I'd like you to actually take the shoes you're wearing, take them off. So if you're wearing your favourite boots, your favourite thongs, your favourite Uggies, your favourite gumboots, if you can take them off now. Yeah, it is a strange request, I know. The reason I asked you to do this, because at this point I want you to be putting on the shoes of your target audience, to be walking in their shoes. So that way you've got a greater opportunity to really tap into what are their concerns, the big challenges they're facing. And if you think back to this small landholder example, what's some of the challenges they're really going with? It could be access to water at this time of year. It could be the time they've got available in addition to working full-time. It could be the money they've got available in addition to paying off their property. So you need to be able to flag that in what you're writing to them to try and get their interest. So for me, one of the biggest barriers when I started doing this sort of stuff was not thinking I knew everything and not thinking that I was the expert, but to really understand and tap into what my audience needed. If you can get past that point in doing your communications, you're going to be 75% of the way home. And that was one of the biggest challenges for me, the man that knew too much. So we've tapped into their interests. Next thing is to develop their desire. And developing their desire is basically thinking about what's the change that we'd like people to experience, or a result we think we'd like to see them achieve. And I was doing some recent work with the Birchip Cropping Group up in northwest Victoria, and they run a heap of events as well, and we were struggling with the question of how do we get people who have been out in the paddock and into a room to sort of make that connection between both those spots. In this case, my suggestion was to use some pretty visual language, either in, if you've got people in a room with you or in your writing. So in that case, it was for a farmer there to say to them, I want you now to picture yourself in your best performing paddock. Look around, what do you see right now? And thinking about the change you're trying to encourage, it could be, now I want you to think of it, be looking in that paddock 2 years from now. What are some of the things you're seeing there? So to me, in that desire thing, it's really starting to build their expectations towards a future benefit. And some of you are probably thinking, this guy's a pretty manipulative sort of fella. It's a bit dark side. That's correct. As long as you believe in the product you're providing and that you've got a solution that's going to help your target audience, that's cool. If it's something it's not, then yeah, that's manipulation. So I just want to put that objection to the side.
Hey, Andrew, talking of the dark side, I've just had a few people comment to me that their screens have gone black. And I confess I'm watching on my computer and I can see your slides beautifully, but I also sneakily log in using an iPad just to see how quickly the slides load, and it went black. So what I did was I closed the program, reopened it. So it takes, maybe 15 seconds. So folks, if you're experiencing too much of the dark side that Andrew was talking about, I'd suggest, I apologise, it's never happened to me before, but I think the quick fix is to quickly close the program and then log back in using the link in your email. But Andrew, I think most people can see it. So folks, if you can see if you can see Andrew's parachute and his first aid box, can you just raise your electronic hands so we can see? Yeah, and like over half the people can see it. So I'd suggest you continue on, but the others can use that remedial action.
Cool. Thanks, John. And that's a good reminder that for everyone that stays with us till the end, there's a complimentary tip sheet that will be available from our website for you to download, which will give some more background to what's on here today. So moving along, with a 15-second allowance for you to see your slide. The final step in the ADA process is simply telling people what action you want them to take. What is it they need to do? If you're wanting them to come to a workshop, to me, I think it's wise to provide a multiple number of response options, whether it's by responding via phone, via email, via registering online. I'm going to use the F word here, John. They might use a thing called a fax. All those sort of things. Giving people multiple responses gives you plenty of options to have them engaged and on board. So that's step one, which is the ADA structure. Step two is pretty much a simple planning one. And like I said, none of these are in particular order, But I've found it's really worthwhile to use a thing I call backcasting to plan your marketing. So be really clear from day one is what's going to be the final day that you're going to send out any marketing messages before your event, and then basically plan backwards from there. What are the critical activities that you need to implement and have in place and ready to go to make sure that you've got the right people and the right amount of people to make your event a success. So it's a simple step, and I reckon most of you guys probably do that, but I find it's useful just to starting with that end in mind and being quite clear on final day for marketing as well as registration. So that's the first two steps, and we're running a little bit ahead of time here, so we've got plenty of time for any questions or comments or statements of outrage or indignation if you have them. Feel free to type them away.
Yes, that's right. So, no, in fact, people are saying that despite the black screen, you've got a really nice sounding voice, Andrew. So it's at least the audio is working. And I've had reports back from people who did close out and came back in saying it worked. So sorry about the technology there, folks. It's just a minor glitch. But we do have some questions for you, Andrew.
Cool.
So the first one is, I find coming up with a title for a workshop is the hardest thing. Do you have any tips for how to overcome with to come up with a good one? So thanks, Nicole, for asking that.
Yeah, nice, easy question. Thanks, Nicole. Probably I'll be thinking of one that's related to a question that people have. So one that relates to what's the problem you're actually trying to solve for them. So the title could be like a how-to type question. In this case, it could be how to market your event to get outrageous success. So to me, I would really, the short answer is start with what's the question you're trying to answer for these people, or what's the question they have, and start developing your title around that. And don't be afraid to take a risk and make it sound a bit sort of out of left field. As long as people understand what the hell you're talking about and it answers a problem for them, you're off and running.
Okay, that's good. And at this stage, there aren't any other questions. So, oh, no, here we go. Most of us may backcast, but some of us do it intuitively, says David, rather than systematically. So we say or think, if we're going to get a good roll-up, we'll need to send something out a month out and remind them 2 weeks out, etc. Do you have any comments about that, Andrew?
David is 100% totally on the money, and I'm going to talk a bit further on about some of the, I guess, some of those steps along the way and when they need to happen and who with and how they need to happen. So David is really obviously ahead of the curve, but what he's highlighted is that we need to have a multi-step process using multiple media to make sure we can get the people we want there in the numbers we want. So we can't just rely on a one-step process. That's, given the clutter in the market today and the big competition for a lot of our clients in getting them there is basically time and what else is on offer. So our challenge is to break through the clutter, and a one step or a one shot at investment's not going to, it's just not going to work anymore.
Okay, and just a clarification, when you were talking about backcasting, do you mean to start with the last marketing action that you'll take and then you work backwards? Is that right?
Spot on, absolutely. Yep.
Great. And how far out from an event should an event organiser commence communications?
If you've got the luxury of 3 months, then you'll have every chance that you'd ever want of getting the people you need to your event. And it does depend on the scale of the event as well. If you're talking workshops and seminars, that's fine. I've been involved in organising the Australasian Facilitators Network Conference, which is a national one. And we started 2 years out with that because we just really wanted to make sure, because we're holding in Perth, and getting people to Perth is not always easy. So we had to make sure that we had plenty of leading time for people to know the date, know there's something good on offer, get themselves organised with travel and accommodation arrangements, and basically make the commitment to rocking up. So we could be sure that we're going to break even with something that's a pretty serious investment.
Andrew, we do have a few more questions, but I'm just going to put them on hold and suggest you move on to the next section.
Cool. Alrighty. So the next thing is, and similar to what a couple of questions have already come up, is I guess starting to move people into that converting area from perhaps thinking about it to getting them over the line to think, all right, this is going to provide really good value, and this is getting into the dark side of things in terms of providing an offer. And some of the information I've read says that in a broad population, 3% of a market is ready to buy any given product now, 7% are open to it, and then we've got 90% who have got to convince to go a bit further. So a lot of our work is going to be from that 7% onwards. And so we need to convince them of value and that there's something in it for them. And this is another concept that's taken me a while to get my head around, and especially like I've got an agricultural science background, so there's a bit of science nerd in me, but not much. I've got rid of that over time. So the concept is that people buy on emotion, then justify their decision with logic. And it's a big statement for a lot of people to get their mind around, because some of us think that people make decisions the same way we do. But if you're thinking of buying a car, a lot of it is emotionally based, then backed up with logic, especially for middle-aged men in sports cars and four-wheel drives. In this case, I want you to be thinking of an offer that will appeal to an emotion of your target market. So this is where we start getting deeper on the dark side. And there's a number of different ways we can hook people in, and that's through recognition. The first one could be if you've got an event coming up with a pretty high-profile guest speaker. You could be offering somebody a premium seat. You could be offering them dinner with the guest speaker, one-on-one type sessions with the guest speaker. If you were bringing, for example, as we all would be, Peter Cosgrove to talk about leadership to one of your events, a seat around the dinner table with him would be highly sought after, as would a one-on-one type session. So to me, doing something like that, if you offered that to one of your potential, and this would be fairly targeted, to one of your potential attendees, you get a lot of people who get pretty excited about that. The next one there is pride, and to me that would be asking one of your someone in your target market, one of your clients, asking them to be part of a panel session or part of a Q&A session or a guest speaker. That would really appeal to somebody's pride and ego. The next one is another F word, which is fear. You could highlight that, talk about perhaps some common mistakes that people are making that will be revealed at your event. And you'll need to work on the wording so that doesn't sound too sort of American glitzy marketing style. But that is a big driver for a lot of people, is that, well, geez, what if there's something I don't know that I'm doing wrong? If there's something that's a blind spot for me that I'm not sure about, how am I going to find out about that? So if you can use that in your event marketing, that can be pretty useful. The one of love, I'm not sure how much that comes up for people, but you could use an offer that would benefit somebody that they love. So if you've got a very blokey farmers tour going across here to South Australia, one of the ways you could get people over the line would be to provide a free day spa voucher for their partners and cut a deal with somebody in town that runs a day spa. That might be something that A, gives them a bit more permission to go on the trip, keeps them happy, and is just another way to think about how to get people over the line. And the final one is one of my favourites, greed and appealing. And I've got some Scottish blood in me, so appealing to our love of a bargain. You can, and the way to do that is if you've got an A list of people, you could either provide a discount to them, or you could provide a list of bonus materials for them to turn up to attend, as long as they register by a certain date. So have a cut-off date that's going to link to your minimum numbers for the event and provide an offer that basically, as long as they're registered by that cut-off date, then they'll get those bonuses. And in that case, it's thinking about what would be valuable to them and something that's cheap for you to offer. So if you've got some written materials or some sessions they could have with a technical consultant or expert, that would be worthwhile to offer to them. And you might have seen in the promotion today that one of the offers, a couple of offers we provided was the tip sheet, if people turned up and stayed, and also a chance of a 1-hour consultation with myself, and we put the value of $330 on that. So they're the sort of things you can start to package into your offering that basically outweighs the price of attending, that people can see, right, there is real value in this for me. So that's tip 3, which is building in an offer. And even if you don't charge for your events, to me, I think you've got to show or demonstrate real value for people to commit their time to. So I'll click on now to move along to the 4th tip, which is about building anticipation. And that's basically making sure that people are on the lookout for what you've got to offer. There's actually a sense of excitement starting to happen. And so with a clear lead-in time, you'll be able to build people's anticipation in a number of different ways. The first one I think everyone should have is their A-list of what I call of hot prospects or people in your target market that you really want there. So I'd be highly recommending you get on the phone to them or send out an email of, to them with a mark the date notification that this is coming up. My brother-in-law and his fiancée are getting married in October, and I know, well, I suspect that they're trying to keep their drinks bill down, so they've got me as their MC. So I'm sure they're going to have late speeches to try and keep me sober as long as they can. And they've just sent out their mark the date notification to all their potential guests, so people know what it's going to be on, and they're getting pretty excited about it, I can tell you. For you, the other things to put in there would be a couple of things here. Is using the scarcity model. Is saying to people, this is invite only, we only have a set number of places available, so you need to make sure you register by this date, and making sure that your registration date is, again, linked to when you want to have your minimum numbers by. You could also, and that some of the things you could put in there as well is hint at who some of the other guest speakers may be, highlight the calibre of some of your previous similar events, talk about the types of people who are likely to attend. So to me, this is really a way to build it up to be probably more exclusive than inclusive, to say the types of people here are the ones who are, I mentioned it today, information seekers. It could be people who are innovators in their industry and really keen to see change and are willing to mix with other people of high calibre. So it's talking people up and flagging to them that you're going to have some pretty sharp people in the room that they're going to get to mix with and be ready for that. That also highlights that you're going to have people there who get what you do, understand the challenges you've got, and would be really valuable in terms of quizzing as well. The other tip is to use testimonials from previous events. You can do this from either using video of people's feedback or what they liked about the event, or you could use information you get from your online surveys from events to find out what people liked and use that in your testimonials and promotion. So that's tip number 4, which is building anticipation. So we've got some time again for some questions, comments, statements of outrage and complete disagreement should you need to do so. Any questions? John?
John, are you there? You've got to unmute.
Okay, here we go. Andrew, yes, we do have some questions.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's okay. I was toggling the mute button the wrong way, I think. So Verity asks a very good question, and it's how much information should be on the flyer? So are speaker bios necessary? So is too much information on the flyer counterintuitive, counter-effective as such?
Yes and no. That depends on the level of investment you're asking people to make. In terms of level of investment of time and money. If you're talking a multi-day type of event, then I think more information is better. And I see flyers for conferences like marketing conferences in the States where they'll send out probably a 10-page flyer with a half-page bios for their speakers because they're working pretty hard to get me to make that major investment to come across to that. So I would judge that based on what you believe your audience preferences are, the level of investment you're asking people to make, and plan B is always to have a short paragraph bio with a link for a full bio on a website.
Okay, sounds good. Now we're going to have to whip through these, so short answers now please, Andrew. So how would you target the audience that gets intimidated by high-profile presenters and audiences, asks Tony.
I would firstly I'd make sure I've got the right audience. If you know your audience gets intimidated by that, then maybe that's not the technique to be using. The other is to have an option for them to have plenty of time where they can have reflective and quiet time together where they're out of the spotlight, and so that more comes back into your event design so they can have time to sit back and discuss some of the big issues with their peers. Is another way to design it in.
Okay, thank you. Caroline asks, can you suggest ways to encourage RSVPs in complacent communities?
Yeah, I would go with scarcity of availability as one of the major ones, and stick with it. Become an airline. Say, rightio, we made our last call, so you can't make it. You can't come. And
okay.
Yeah, be pragmatic.
Sure.
So what to do
now, Kat is. Oh, okay. So Kat is asking for events that are supposed to be inclusive, how to make those seem to be exclusive?
I would probably appeal again to ego there to talk about the calibre of the people that you're looking for as much as anything, and then let the audience decide if they fit in with that grouping.
Okay. And Kathy asks, in your experience, Andrew, how successful has your approach been applied at the local government level?
Ooh. I honestly have to say I haven't tried it a lot with the local government, but I think if you targeted your messages to the challenges they're facing and you're providing a highly valuable solution for them, then this approach would work. Part of it would be to overcome resistance. Think of what their resistance and objections are and address those in your marketing.
Great, okay. Just a few more. So Wayne is asking, do you have to suit promotion to the event, such as radio, media, flyers, etc.?
We'll be talking about that in a moment, actually, but I think if you've got multiple channels, you've got much better chance of getting people there. It's really as simple as understanding where your audience goes for their information and making sure you're there. Obviously within your budget that you've got.
Okay. And finally, Carrie is asking how to identify the cut-off point to cancel an event.
To me, I base that on both budget and critical mass in terms of having enough people there to make sure there's plenty of people to bounce ideas off, to get interaction and feedback. If the option is to refocus if you're getting low numbers, but you still want to go with it, and say, well, now we've decided to make this a master class, so there's only going to be 11 people coming along today, and the door is shut, and this is how we're going to run it. So you can probably adapt it along the way to suit if you're committed to going ahead with it. And I've done that with events, is that we've decided, whatever the case, we're pressing go, because it would have cost us in terms of reputation to have cancelled.
That's good. Thanks, Henry. And just one last one from Vol out of Longreach, who's been one of our long-term webinar participants. He's asking, have you had much experience with Indigenous events, Andrew, and any tips and tricks there?
The short answer is no. I've run workshops with Indigenous groups. To me, I'm probably using more local networks and word of mouth rather than as much as anything. And thinking, in this case, off the top of my head, I'd be thinking of what's the story behind my event and using story as a way of getting that message through. To me, my understanding is stories feature reasonably strongly in Indigenous culture, so as much as any culture. So perhaps I'd be using that, which would connect to your event, which would connect people to your event.
Sounds good. So, Andrew, we'll let you continue your story now with your third and final segment.
Cool. So let's roll on to thinking about this concept of establishing reciprocity. Hard word to pronounce. Once you get your mind around it, this is a really good concept I've read about. And it's come, if you look at the work of a fellow called Jeff Walker, that's Jeff with a J, he comes out of the States, and exceptionally good marketer. And he highlights the need that we've really got to tap into the spaced repetition model of providing messages that act as reminders to people and also show increasing value from their participation in attending an event. And we alluded to this earlier, that that a common mistake is that we simply send an email, ask people to sign up to our event, or send a flyer. We just have one shot at it, and that's it. If they're distracted, as they will be, and they've got other things going on, for us to really get onto their radar is going to need more of a challenge. So we need to basically get into a Christmas frame of mind and start our marketing by giving without the expectation of receiving. So let's go a bit deeper on that. In terms of what this is about, is looking at our marketing should involve providing up to 3 snippets of valuable information about the content of the event that will assist the target market in solving the problem that the event addresses. So we don't go overboard. We don't actually show them exactly how their problem needs to be fixed, but we can provide some information on what needs to be fixed. So if we're thinking back to our very first example of giving small landholders a solution to the problem of blackberries on their land in northeast Victoria, we could provide a couple of lead-in emails or even short brochures or videos or letters which shows what needs to be fixed in terms of blackberry control and what it's going to stop for them and how it's going to benefit them. So you could send perhaps 3 emails with that in it. And again, as you can see there, some really useful tips that are congruent with the topic of your event. So first email is all about what you're going to do to help control blackberries. The second email is about the same sort of thing. And the third email, in this case, is what he calls, is when you make I'm trying to remember the name of the move. Either way, the third email is one where you actually start to flag that the event I've got coming up is going to give you the details on how to address the problems of blackberries on your property. So it's a 3-step process, and by the 3rd step they've either decided there's no way I'm going to this, it's not for me, or you've got them over the line because you've established a feeling of commitment to you from the prospect because you've provided them with something of value. And the 3rd step is this, what he calls a pivot step, where the event you're promoting actually should be introduced. So it's a bit of a different approach to what I said earlier in terms of mark the date. This one's that delayed gratification where you're waiting for the third step, and then by that stage you should have enough credits in the bank that people have warmed up, they've got a bit of trust in what you're providing them, and they're more likely to sign up, especially if you've got a good offer. So that's the reciprocity tip. So it's being willing to give a few things away in order to get people over the line. Next one is one of the biggies, is the market message media triangle. And this is from some work I've seen from some marketers in the US. And it's a good way of bringing the whole of what we've talked about together to be really clear on making sure that we understand who we're trying to get, who we're trying to influence, what messages we're going to use to influence them with, and then how we're going to get that message to them. So let's go a bit deeper on that. Again, at the start of the webinar, my assumption was that you had a pretty clear understanding of who's in your market. So it's really making sure that that you're quite clear on what their decision-making processes are, the sort of challenges they're facing in their business, where they are in their business life cycle, and perhaps things like their attitude to risk. So making sure that you've covered off those issues in the solution that you've got for them. The next step is to think about the message that you're going to put out there. So again, thinking back to that ADA principle, making sure that somewhere within your message you're really flagging that you have a solution to people's problems. And going with the next biggie, sorry, is thinking about what media you're going to use to get them. And to me, it's thinking about where do these people typically go for their information, and how are you going to make sure that you can cut through the clutter to get to them. So to me, it's thinking about some of the stuff we've learned before in terms of the visual, auditory and kinesthetic principles. What people prefer their information in, or they pick up their information better from reading or through visual, watching. Are they more hands-on people, so you don't have to actually send them something they can get to grab and try? In terms of kinesthetic, or are they auditory? Are they happy just to listen, write and ask questions? I'll leave you to Google VAK principles and go into that a bit deeper. So to me, I use a range of different tools to try and cut through clutter. The first one you can see there is a postcard I sent out to my clients when I turned 15. I know I sound a lot older than that, but my business recently turned 15 in January this year. I've been going 15 years. So I sent a postcard that you can see there to all of the clients that I've worked with over that time frame. And if you can write down this web address, www.sendoutcards, that's sendoutcards.com. That's an automated platform, which unfortunately I don't have shares in, that you can basically put in a message there and it will send it out and do all the posting out and upload your addresses, and that'll do it for you in a typed or handwritten font. So in this case, it would be sending it to John, to Megan, to Ewan, all those people saying, "Dear John, thanks for working with me for the last 15 years. It's been wonderful to have you on board. I'm looking forward to the next 15. All my love, Andrew." I got a great response from that. I had 3 or 4 people ring up, a couple other people email saying, "Love the personal touch." Simple, cheap to do, $1 each, and they're in people's mail in their post boxes. The second one there was a small booklet, the one you can see in the center of your screen. That's a 30-page A5 folded booklet that you can easily put together, and that helps to provide some basic information about what you're trying to do, a solution you're trying to provide people with, or a problem you're trying to solve, and can provide some information for them, and it helps provide a bit of credibility. Anything you can send out in printed form has a higher perceived value than something you can send in electronic form. The third one there, in terms of another media I've used to get to my audience, is the Andrew jumping out of a bin video. If you go and Google me on YouTube, you'll see that video being used to grab people's attention. And the video subject was about was designing your next event. And part of it was the intention of the video was to grab people's attention, because that's what we have to do, obviously, in our event design as well as our marketing that we're talking about today. So if you look at that video, it actually started with a still shot of an empty recycle bin. Then this incredibly good-looking skinhead pops out of it and starts talking about event design. So it's purely designed as an attention grabber for people. So to me, in terms of media, it's really thinking about how am I going to break through the clutter. Do I use these sort of things? I know a lot of people working with farmers using SMS. You can use what's called three-dimensional lumpy mail. I've sent people a Rubik's Cube in the mail with some of my promotional stuff to saying, here's a way to solve your biggest, hardest problem. We've already heard people talk about local newspaper and radio, your own websites or industry websites and email mail-outs are another way to do, and your local grower group newsletters, websites, emails are just another way to think of the different ways you can get your message to your market. So I just want to click through and add a bit of sugar here, which is provide an unexpected bonus. So we've got people to our event, they're excited, they're enjoying because you're providing exceptional value to them. Think of what's a bonus we can provide them that will really create a buzz and get them talking about what you've done. Is it a take-home how-to sheet? Is it a case study that walks them through so once they've left they know what to do and how to do it? Is it a free consultation? My favourite, of course, is a bottle of wine, but no, you can't. It's pretty difficult for a lot of people. But think about what's an unexpected bonus I can provide for participants on the day that will turn it into an experience for them and create a buzz, so that will create demand next time. And for people who didn't come, they'll have a feeling of being left out because I'm a nasty person. So there's 7 tips. So in summary, remember to use the AIDA structure for your message: attention, interest, desire, and action. Schedule your task with backcasting. Make sure you have a great offer to get them from intending to committing. Build anticipation through a number of different avenues. Have a spirit of giving with this reciprocity. Use the market message media triangle, and have your unexpected bonus to get people excited. So that's me. That's the 7 tips. And I'm ready for more questions, comments, and statements of outrage.
Good on you, Andrew. That's really good. And if you want to, you can just go to your next slide so people can see your contact details too, as I send you a barrage of questions here. So first of all, thank you to Jackie, who has followed up about the question about working with Indigenous audiences, and she's suggesting to ensure that you allow extra lead time for planning the event, to allow people to get prepared to attend, and also building the trust and relationship. So that's really good. Thanks for sharing that, Jackie. Kim asks, do you think promotional items, such as giveaways, are money well spent at events, and if so, what works best?
I think they are, as long as they're congruent with what you're putting on, and that they're good ways for people to remember you. And I once got a $20,000 contract through a pen, believe it or not. So I was talking to a potential client at a forum, and she asked for my card. I didn't have a card, but I had an Andrew Huffer pen, and that's how she followed up and led to a fair chunk of work. So something that's going to be useful to the audience, or remember you by, and it's congruent with the event, absolutely. And that can be your little unexpected bonus.
Lovely. Good idea there. So, Andrew, I have a bunch of people talking about spamming. So let me read out some questions. How do you walk the fine line of spamming people with email when you're sending out 3 emails? Another one saying, can you send out too many invites? Spam, won't this turn people away due to the annoying emails? Yeah, so can you clarify that for us, please?
Sure. I think part of this really comes back to that planning stage and making sure you're really clear on who's the people that you're trying to attract, and making sure that your benefit provides a solution to their problem. If you've got that in place, they're going to be more likely predisposed to what you're offering them. And so it's really positioning yourself to be seen to be what's called as a welcome guest rather than an uninvited pest. So part of it's making sure they're on your A list, and then making sure the information you provide at each step highlights or provides value to them as you go along. And also test your headlines when if you're using an email marketing program. There's usually a spam tester in that as well to make sure your headlines and links don't set off the spam attacks.
Okay, good, thank you. Now, Cynthia is asking a really good question. If you focus
Cynthia
on
always does.
problems, she does. If you focus on solving problems, do people get put off because no one wants to think that they're that person with the problem? So if they come away, if they come, they're admitting that, well, they might be a loser. And she means loser in the nicest possible way. So a person with a problem, and they are admitting it to the world.
I think that could be that could be a challenge. I think it's going to be difficult to get people there if there isn't a problem for them. I'll just continue with business as usual. I think if you can context your promotion by showing that that's okay, and and everyone else there is going to be in the same boat, then that's going to help that side of things. To me, it's important for people to know they're not alone with something like this, and that you're going to be walking beside them, providing them with confidence to deal with whatever their business is throwing at them. So maybe it's a way of turning the message around that way.
Okay, good, thank you. And another suggestion here from one of the participants. So Stuart says, we've found free beer to be an excellent hook. And I notice he comes from the Territory.
Sorry, what was the hook again?
Free beer.
Oh, of course.
That's right.
Stuart obviously knows his audience very well.
That's right.
A social element always works. There's no doubt about that. As long as you get that at the end of the event, I think that works best.
That's right. Okay, let's see, something diverse here. So Irene, lovely to have you with us today. Irene confesses that she can't resist baby pictures and is asking Andrew, how would they work for you?
As long as they're not of me, that'd work.
That
serious answer is, oh, Lordy. Serious answer is, if you can make the imagery you're using relate to the subject of your event, then they'll work. So it's really providing that segue or connection between the images you're using and what you've got on offer. So it could be, you'll be so excited by this event, you'll feel like you're as young as a baby. Something like that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's see. Wayne is asking you, Andrew, have you got a bonus for us for today's event?
Absolutely. You'll be able to download a free tip sheet. Later on I'll have a PDF of the presentation, and there'll be 10 people on the call who will be going into a draw for a 1-hour one-to-one consultation with me. So there's bonuses galore. And you can see on the screen there, you can also go across to the facilitators inner circle and get a weekly facilitation tip for people who have to do facilitation or team leadership in their events. There's a weekly tip there that's going to help you along the way. Plus some great video content.
Excellent. Now I'm going to have to wind it up. So quick comment from Abby suggesting a free lunch is always good. And Darren is asking, I heard it said that when promoting an event, I need to do it at least 5 to 7 times across different media channels in the lead up to the event to get people to commit to attending. Is this true in your experience, Andrew?
Yeah, I've heard the same figures, 7 touches to get people to make a decision. So
yes.
Yeah, for sure.